Okay, this is my version of the week 3 program. It's not, it doesn't do input because I just didn't feel like, what the heck was that? F5. There it goes. And there's my program. Okay? It runs. I'm going to walk through you what it does because after grading them, some of you had questions. Alright. So, I did not put a lot of comments in mine, sorry. Because I know what I'm doing. No, because remember I just wrote this real quick and then assigned it. It's not like, I mean, it doesn't even get input. I just hard-coded that part. Alright. I told you all to make a function. This is a function, okay? Right there. A function you make with the word DEF, stands for define or definition. Give it a name and give it some variables, okay? Or the arguments, the objects they call them in Python, okay? Well, the first part of the script, though, this stuff is outside of the function, okay? It's really totally separate from it. This stuff you actually could have in a different file even. You could actually save this to another file. The only reason I'm not having you guys do that is so you don't have to set the OS path. So when I grade it, it's a lot easier because it would be a pain in the butt. Okay, so where'd my mouse go? Oh, where did my mouse go? There it is. All right. So let's start down here in the main part of the program. I hard-coded the text. Not everybody did that. That was a requirement. Just so you know, there was a requirement. Somebody left off the quotes at the end. You need quotes at the beginning and the end. You did that. I graded them all.
Just took off a lot of points for that one little error.
That wasn't the only error.
Oh. You didn't say anything else under that.
Oh,
just that one
well.
error.
He didn't have time.
Then I wanted you to print out the ciphertext itself. So that takes that hard-coded text and just outputs it on the screen. That gives us this part right up here. Okay? There's some people that's all they turned in. So it's a little bit lacking. Alright. So this next one says print. Now I did this so it gives me a blank line. So I said print. What?
Left that empty? Just
Yeah, you could have.
and don't have to put the in. Okay.
Well, the /n is the new line character. It makes it put a blank line. The reason I did that is that way I have the ciphertext here. Then I have a blank line right in here so that, you know, it kind of separates it out. I was grading some assignment for some, but I don't even remember what class it was now, the other day, and their entire thing was one big old paragraph. You can't. You know, when I was working on my bachelor's degree, they required us to write a paper for every class. Every class. So I was in calculus having to write a research paper. It was on group interaction studying for calculus or something like that. The reason was somebody went to work on their master's degree and wrote a 15-page paper, started with a capital letter, 15 pages later had a period. That's not how you write a paper. Okay? I mean, there was nothing. So you need paragraphs. So it just makes it easier to read. Okay? And this whole point here, my mouse is like freaking out. There it is. This right here will take the ciphertext, get the length of it, and convert to a string. So that line is just printing that number. 455 characters will be decrypted, I think. Yeah. Okay? Then we call our function called decrypt, passing it the shift, which you guys got input for the shift, but I just didn't on mine. Then we also pass it the ciphertext. Again, this has not been converted, it's not been uppercased or replaced or anything at this point. Then when that's done, it returns the results into something called result. I just called it result. Okay? We're going to look at the method in a second. So the decrypted text is now saved in the variable result. So then I output result on the screen. So what that'll give me, that will give me this. Okay, the result. Then I do the same exact thing again, giving the length. But this time, instead of ciphertext, I just use a result. Okay? Easy enough. Then I wanted to know how many times the word "and" was there. So I basically said, oh, right there. Okay, right there. It's result. Remember, the decrypted text is now called result. So it's result.count, and I put "and" in there. Had to be uppercase because remember my text has been converted to uppercase. And you had to wait till after it's been decrypted because the word "and" wasn't in the ciphertext. It was only in the decrypted text. And I converted to string. So everybody okay on that part? I'd say most of you had that part somewhat correct. I'll stress the word somewhat. Okay, now let's go back to our decrypt. Okay. One other thing I've noticed from people is when you're writing programs, you write the whole thing. Don't do that. What you guys should have done is you should have written this line right here. Get that to compile. Get it to run. I mean, it won't do anything, but get it to run. Then add that one next line. Add that. There's a couple of you didn't even have that. I mean, you should have at least got that to run because, it's something is better than nothing. I mean, if you give me nothing, you get a 0. If you give me something, you're going to get something. I don't know how much. It varies, but so then you add the links. I mean, because there was some people that had an issue with that. It's like, just work on it little by little. All right, so now let's look at what decrypt does. So my decrypt method, or function, method and function are really the same thing. You know what the only difference between a method and a function is?
A function returns something.
Function returns a value. That's the only difference. Okay? All right, so we have decrypt, it receives shift, and receives CT for ciphertext. I just wanted to save a few keyboard characters there. I'm converting it to uppercase. There was like 4 or 5 of you that tried to do CT equals CT.upper.replace. I don't know where y'all found that, but it wasn't working for you. Should have done it separately. It would have been so much easier. This is the way I showed you all, wasn't it? Showed you separate. What you tried to do is something called method call chaining, which works great in Java. It doesn't work quite the same way in Python. Obviously, quite a few had issues with it. Okay. So, convert it to uppercase. Then we want to replace. I'm replacing, see there's a space in the middle there? There's no space in the middle here. Somebody actually had that. So replacing nothing with nothing. So why have it at all? Okay? So I'm replacing a space with nothing. And that gets saved again as CT. Remember I told you that last time. Make sure you save it and somewhere else will just output the result. It won't actually change it. Then I made something called my string, just a new string. Because we're going to, when we convert this, I'm going to save it into a new string. Okay?
Does it matter on the single or double quotations?
No, actually it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. The only time it matters is when you want to output double quotes, you have to have your string in single quotes. So. Okay. So then we want to have our for loop. It's going to, for x in range, the length of my ciphertext. So however long the ciphertext is. If it's 10 characters, if it's 455 characters, however long it is, it's going to go that. So since it was 455 characters, it's going to start at 0. It's going to continue to 454. Okay? When I wrote mine, to make sure it worked, I just did print x. And actually, let me show you exactly what I did. To make sure my loop was working, I did print x. Watch what that does. There it goes. Oh, look. Well, 379 because it's been converted. That's right. I already replaced all the characters. That's right. I replaced all the spaces. So now you know it's going to start at 0 and go all the way up to 379. So that's a very easy thing you can do to see if your thing's working. Is my loop running? Yeah. So I threw that print statement in there. Okay. Here's the part where most of you had an issue. Okay. I use just if statements. There's multiple ways to do this. This is probably the easiest way. If you left off the if statements you left off the if statements and just had that one line, I'll show you what it does. Okay, it's not going to work. Hold on. Go back here. I want the other one. Darn it. I must have changed my code. We're going to get the one yet. It's one of these three. There it is. Some of you had that. Okay. So really the whole decrypt method, lost my mouse again, the whole loop could actually be done with one line. See the one line that's blinking right there? That one line. Okay? That really does the entire thing. Okay? I'm going to explain what this one line does, then we'll look at the rest of it. Okay? What this one line does says my string, or my string is equal to my string. So, in other words, whatever the string was to start with, what did it start with? It was blank. Remember up here it was blank? So whatever my string is equal to that plus something. So we're using, is this a plus sign? What does that do? There's a name for it.
Concatenation.
Concatenation. It's a string concatenation character. So this basically says take my string and add something to it. Then take that and save it into my string again. So the string's getting longer and longer and longer and longer. Okay. Now we know order operations always start on the inside first. Okay. So this part right here says cipher text index 0. So it takes the first character, which is the capital W. Everybody okay with that? Then the next, what? It's capital. We already ran it through replace and upper. It's capital because we've already done replace and upper. So first time through, it's working with the capital W. Next time through, it's the capital K, then the capital H, so on and so forth. Okay? Well, we take that. Then working out from there, we take the ORD of that. What did ORD do? Integer value. Remember, it's getting us the ASCII value of it. So the A would be a 65, the B would be a 66, the W would be a bigger number, whatever that comes out to be. Okay? So we took the capital W, converted it to a number. Don't die over there. Okay, then we take that number and we shift it. So if it was a 90, now it's an 87. So we're shifting it over. Okay? Everybody got that? So whatever that number was, so the capital W is now 3 less. Okay? Right, it actually becomes the T. So the capital W becomes a T. So now what we have is we have the numerical value of a T. Because we're still working with numbers. So it's not really a T yet, it's the ASCII value of a T. Then we use the char, CHR, to convert that number back to a character. So now the ASCII value of a T becomes a T. Then we add it to my string. So we end up with a string that's just the letter T. And we do that over and over and over and over 379 times. And we end up with that right there. Okay? A couple of you turned in that, which is very close. The only thing you're missing is the shifting at the end of the alphabet. Okay? In other words, when you, like say we have a B, and we want to shift left 3. We're off. I mean, A is 1, well, question mark is 2, or whatever. It's off the side of the alphabet. So what do? You wrap it around. So what my code does, right here, it says if all that stuff you're doing, if that, it's everything I did below with the exception of the character, okay? If the numeric value after the shift is greater than 90, in other words, we're past the Z, then subtract 26. You'll see it's the same exact command as this. except I added a minus 26. So if we shift to the right and we're past the Z, subtract 26. So if it's 1 past Z, that becomes a B. Okay? Everybody see that? If we do that same exact math calculation with our shift value, if it's less than 65, in other words, if it's less than A, then we go down in here and we add 26 to it. Same exact calculation as the bottom line, except we add 26 this time. Everybody see that? All right. No, stop. Make sure it still runs. Yep. Ever see what that did? It fixed those couple little question marks we had up there. It's like the cyber, the Y is where the issue comes in. See, now we're getting the Y correctly. Because we were shifting below the A, so just brought it back up. Could you have done this on separate lines? Yes, you could have. That's probably how Cameron did it. You had a lot more lines than I did. What? Mine looks great. Okay, so you could have made a variable to store the ASCII value, made a variable to store the... You could have done all that. I'm just trying to store it all in one. Yeah, I always remember the Tom Hanks movie Apollo 13? Anyone ever watched that movie? Where, remember when they had to start it all in a certain way to conserve the amount of power they were drawing? I kind of think that with programming. Because what if we're actually writing a program and it's going to run on something that has so small amount of memory? You can also, if you watch the movie 21 with Kevin Spacey, remember they built that little robot that had so many K of memory on the chip? Well, just declaring one variable takes up multiple, bits of memory. So I'm like, do I really need that variable? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. So you just got to decide. And what's happening now, people are starting to create more and more variables, which is okay because we got more and more memory. But if I was to look at my machine right here, let's see if I can't get it up here without using the Control-Delete. If I was to start Task Manager right now, Camtasia is using 57 megabytes of memory. Just Camtasia. What if they had declared their variables differently? Could they have used 56 megabytes? That's the whole point about variables. Every time you create a variable, it's more and more memory is being used up. And your machine gets slower, programs function slower. So I'm never going to take off for that. It's just my opinion on that. Okay? Everybody a little bit clear on program 3? I mean, it's always clear when you see the answer. But wasn't overly difficult. Now, I do have a guy, Nolan Merlot, who actually works down in room 201. He can help, but only for the next 2 weeks. So if you got questions with the next program, go see him. He's here, whatever his hours are on my door. It's like noon to 2, 3 days a week or something. Okay? Because he played a little bit with Python. It's one thing you just learn real quick. Especially, he's programmed in a lot of languages, so it's kind of like me. You just do it. It's not that difficult. Okay? Any more questions on program 3? Yes, ma'am.
Because the way I did it was my string plus equals that, so
Yeah.
that we don't have, because that's less space and all that.
Right. You actually could have. You could have done this. Yeah, she could have. It's called the compound operator. The only reason I didn't do that is because I was trying to do that somewhere else, and it didn't support the compound operator for the math. I'm like, what?
You didn't cover that class.
What?
You didn't cover that compound.
No, I didn't. No. You would have had to know it from another language. But in Java, that's how I have you do everything. but it was something with the number I was doing. It didn't support it. I'm like, what do you mean it doesn't support compound or unary operators? It was unary. That's what I was trying to get done. I'm like, how does it not support unary operators? What a unary operator is, I'll show you real quick. If you said A equals A plus 1, okay, that's a regular statement. You understand that? Right there. Unary operator is A plus plus.
It doesn't support that?
No, it doesn't.
Seriously?
That's why I'm like, wow. That's why I didn't put this in there. So I'm like, it doesn't support unary. It probably doesn't support compound
I
either.
googled it because I was like, I wanted to see if it worked.
Yeah, because I tried the unary. I kept getting unary. What do you mean it doesn't support that? I'm like, oh, I guess it doesn't.
On the Cipher text,
Yes.
I did the upper and the replace at the same time.
And you had no problems with it? Okay. So I know a couple of people did it and had issues with it. I don't know. I didn't look into why it wasn't working. Yeah, it's called method called chaining. It's not a big deal. But there was something, the way, I don't know, a couple of you had it. I don't remember exactly who had it done that way. But it definitely caused errors. So, yeah, you can do that. Because I teach that in Java as well. But, all right. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to close this.
You gonna fix that real quick? Will you?
Just not going to save it. Alright, I'm going to stop this recording. Okay, the recording will be up here until I remember to delete it tomorrow.